right. So today I'm excited to start our new program called Hear and Be Heard, Strategies for Success in Group Communication. This is presented by the Center for Hearing and Healthy Aging, which is a special concentration at CHC, Center for Hearing Communication. We are located in Lower Manhattan on 50 Broadway. We are a physical clinic where we help people with all degrees of hearing loss and different issues related to hearing loss and/or auditory processing disorder. And we help people with all different types of communication preferences, including people who are deaf and sign. This is just one of our many programs that we have to help people with hearing loss. Today is the inaugural session of this type of program, and I'm happy to introduce Meg Webster. So please take it away, Meg. And we look forward to hearing your feedback. I will be providing a survey digitally in the chat. Please click on that at the end of the session and kindly answer some of the questions we have. For those of you joining us in the center, I will send the survey to Margie. We also have a handout at the end that summarizes some of the key points from the session, and I will share that in the chat as well as share it in an email to Margie, who can give it to you after the session. Okay, take it away, Meg.
Hello, everybody. My name is Meg Webster. I am a speech-language pathologist at the Center for Hearing and Communication, and I'm the coordinator of our adult oral rehabilitation program. So while I work with people across the lifespan, from little babies to older adults, most of my work at this time is working with adults who have hearing challenges and helping them build their skills with listening and hearing, as well as learn strategies for hearing better in their everyday lives. I've been working with people with hearing loss for almost 20 years now, and it's a true passion of mine. So I'm hoping that the information that I share with you today is useful to you. I do have some slides that I can share to give you some visual information to reinforce what I'm going to be saying to you. And I hope that if there are any questions or ideas, that we'll have some time at the end to talk about those, and we can and that I can answer any questions. And we can also share our experiential knowledge. So to begin, I'm going to share my screen, and I would love to hear if this is not working, if you're having trouble hearing me, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Carolyn, can you turn on my ability to share? If you, yeah, got it. There we go. Okay. Everybody can see the slides and hear me. Carolyn, I can see you. Does this look okay? Okay. All right. So
it's just not enlarged. Do you want it to be enlarged so we can see some of your tabs?
Oh, yep, I can do that. Hold on.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone. Oops. All right. I don't want to lose my view of everybody else, so we'll just leave this here. Okay, so some places where you may find it really difficult, and I acknowledge some of the information I'm going to share with you, you're going to say, yes, I know this, I'm living this, this is the difficulty, but I think sometimes it's helpful to know that the challenges that you as an individual are facing are common or shared by others. I know that that helps me know that there are things that are hard for everybody and that that's the way it is. So Places where hearing in group conversations can be challenging are noisy public spaces like restaurants, bars or clubs, stores, large open spaces that you may be traveling through, airports or train stations, large halls or gymnasiums, and then social gatherings, whether they are in a home or a community center or outdoors. These can be challenging for a variety of reasons that we're going to talk about. The reason that it's so hard to hear in groups in these places, one of the major things is overlapping conversations. For example, when you're somewhere like a community center, everybody in the room may not be involved in one dedicated activity. There may be side conversations. When you're at a social gathering with a large group of people, there may be more than one conversation going on. When you're in your place of work, you may find that there's more than one conversation going on in an environment. Those overlapping conversations just in and of themselves can make it really difficult to focus on what you are trying to listen to. Background music seems to be everywhere, certainly in stores, certainly in restaurants. Background music can make it difficult to focus on the conversation you're trying to have. Poor room acoustics, the way the room is set up physically, can make it difficult to hear in a group conversation. We'll talk a little bit more about what those room acoustics look like and how you can manage them. Environmental noise. A lot of my adult patients talk about the difficulty of going for a walk and talking with people, or sitting outside and talking with people. Over the pandemic, I think that this increased even more because of outdoor restaurant seating. This became a very common thing. Excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. This became a very common thing, but it's a really challenging listening environment to be sitting at a restaurant, technically, but you're outside, traffic noise, wind, people walking by. Excuse me. Traffic noise in general. When you're living in a city, the background noise of traffic noise, whether you're outside or inside, and the traffic noise coming through the windows if you don't have really well-designed windows. Excuse me. Industrial background noise, so ventilation, air conditioning. Sometimes you'll be in a room that has perhaps a fish tank or a fountain. Those environmental sounds can be distracting for you when you are trying to listen in a group. And then this is a little bit more of a technical term, but not really, but reverberation or echoing. When you're in a large room with high ceilings, maybe a place of worship, a church or something, or a synagogue or something like that, where there are really tall ceilings and hard surfaces like glass and tile, the sound that you're trying to listen to is going to bounce around and become less clear. This makes it difficult to listen. So here are some things about the physical space that you may find yourself in that I put in the good and the bad and the ugly. So the things that are good to see that will help you listen more clearly are carpeting, curtains. I'm going to jump down and say also soft furnishings, upholstery, things like that. Interestingly, even books on bookshelves in the environment that you're in. All of these things optimize the auditory signal, make it more clear and easy for you to hear. Acoustic ceiling panels. People are doing away with these all of the time for the sake of aesthetics, but the panels in the ceiling that are sort of that bumpy textured panel, those are really good for optimizing a listening environment. When you are entering a space, if you look around and the seating that you have available to you is close in proximity, and is also around a round table and also a smaller table. Those are all optimal physical environmental considerations. The closer you are to the people you're trying to speak to, the better. The more direct line of sight that you have to the people that you're trying to communicate with, the better. And then soft lighting. Now, lighting is a really important consideration when you are thinking about where you are trying to communicate. You want a well-lit space, but you want to make sure that you are not trying to communicate with somebody who is sitting in front of a window, because then they are backlit and it's very hard to see their face clearly. You know, as much as we want to rely on our hearing to listen to a conversation, we pull in lots of other information that is visual when we're communicating with others. We read lips, we look for facial expressions, we are looking at gestures that people are using. All of those things enhance our understanding. And if we don't have a good visual connection to the people we're trying to speak with, because it's either too dim or they're backlit, or we're not able to see them directly, that can make things more challenging. So on the other side of the coin, in terms of the space that you're trying to communicate in, hard surfaces like tile, glass, concrete, all of those make the auditory signal coming to you bounce around and become less clear. The same with large open spaces, high ceilings, we touched on those, dimly lit spaces, bright backlighting. We talked about the outdoors, and then sudden intermittent noises. A big part of optimal understanding, optimal communication is auditory attention, being able to focus on what you are listening to so that you can devote all of your resources to understanding and having a back and forth with the people that you're trying to communicate with. When there are things that happen suddenly, like doors slamming or people coming through, that will distract you, and it will detract from that auditory attention that will enhance your understanding. I guess I'll just pause and see if anybody has any questions or anything that they would like to ask. You can unmute if you are virtual, or all right, I'll move on. So this is a description of the optimal conversation partner. Now, Carolyn, everything okay? Okay, yeah. The optimal conversation partner, I include this slide because it is a prescription for you as the person who is attempting to listen in a challenging context, but also so that you can help others understand what you need from them to enhance your understanding when you're in a group. So the people that you're talking with, if you're able to face them directly or semi-directly, if you can stand or sit in a well-lit area so that your face is visible and the people that you're communicating with are visible. The people that you're communicating with need to speak clearly. I think that you can all relate to the instinct that some people have to speak with increased volume, or to speak slower when you indicate to them that maybe you're having trouble hearing them or understanding them. But what we know is that that doesn't actually help you hear the speech more clearly. A moderate pace of speaking, not too fast, but not too slow, a moderate volume of speaking. The sounds that we use become distorted if we speak too loud, and they're difficult to hear clearly. So sort of that sweet spot with pace and volume are really important. Avoiding over-enunciating, keeping speech natural. When you over-enunciate, then it's difficult to understand sometimes. And then enhancing the communication through your spoken language communication through using gestures, facial expressions, things like that. Avoiding interruptions, again, speaking to auditory attention. And then also, for both people, for the person listening and the person speaking, confirming that there's understanding, happening between you during the conversation is an important thing. So there are things that we can do to sort of set ourselves up for success when we're communicating in a group. If you know that this is something that is challenging as a rule for you, there are things that you can do to lay a groundwork for your best opportunity to understand what's happening. Some of these things are very explicit requests of the people that you are in conversation with or in a group with. So your comfort level may be different based on who this group is. If it's people that are familiar to you, like your family, I have a lot of adult patients who came back from the holidays, and when we met again, they talked about the challenges that they faced just during the holidays when they're spending time with their family. There are other group conversations when you're in a place that you're less familiar with the other people, where some of these things may not be possible, but here are some things you can do. You can ask one person to speak at a time so those overlapping conversations are kept to a minimum. You can plan ahead by informing other people of your communication challenges. If you are experiencing hearing loss, you can express that, say, this is difficult for me, and I want to let you know that. Here are some things that it would be super helpful if you could do. You can position yourself sitting close to either the speaker, if you're in a group setting where there's a single speaker and you're listening to them, or if you are going to be in a group, sit as close as possible to the people that you're going to be talking with. If you are entering a restaurant with a group of people, this is one of the contexts that I get the most feedback about being difficult. Going to a restaurant with a group of people. When you enter that restaurant, sit in the middle. Don't sit at the end of the table because you think that you are not going to be able to hear anyway. Sit in the middle because that's where you're going to be able to hear the best, and that's where you're going to have the most direct view of everybody's face. If you feel comfortable, you could even educate the people that you're communicating with about things that they could do that would make it easier for you to understand them. Speaking clearly, avoiding covering their mouth, not shouting, those types of things. There are situations where maybe it's even possible to manage the noise in the environment. If it's a restaurant, could you request that they turn down the background music? Things like that. I have one adult that I work with who marches into every restaurant that he goes to and walks right up to the manager and says, I need you to turn down the background noise. I have trouble listening in an environment like this, and the music will make it even more difficult. He has no problem doing that. I don't know if that would be my approach, but it is a way of optimizing the environment. And then this next point is the beginning of an idea that I'm sure you all are very well acquainted with, and that is context. When we have context for what is being discussed or talked about, it allows us to fill in the blanks so much more effectively, and I'll talk about that more in detail. But if you can familiarize yourself with what may be talked about, if it's a specific event, then having that context can be really helpful up front because you'll have an expectation of what you might be hearing. When communication breakdowns do occur, when, communicating in groups is difficult. There are all of these things that we can pay attention to and attend to, but it is a difficult listening context. So when that difficulty does arise, there are some things that you can do to improve the situation or to keep the communication moving. Um, One of those things is when you're in a conversation, you can request clarification. If you feel you've missed something, you can ask, you should feel free to ask for the person to repeat themselves. Can you say that again? Could you explain that in a different way? One thing that I know is that people are, I'm sure you've had the experience that when you ask somebody to repeat something in a group, that there there is a tendency for a person who doesn't understand maybe what it's like to miss things because of hearing. They may just say, "Oh, never mind, it wasn't important." And we don't want that. That doesn't work for us. You've missed it and you didn't want to miss it, and that's why you're asking. So you want the information. There have been studies about human behavior that have shown that if you give your conversation partner a bit of information about what you did hear, they will be more willing or more likely to fill in what you missed than if you just say, "What?" or "Could you repeat that?" They're more likely to contribute part of what they said or repeat part of what they said than the whole message. And that's just human behavior. And knowing that, you can frame your request for repetition to be more specific. I heard you say you were going somewhere. Where was that? Or you went to the, and give them the opportunity to fill in that blank so that you can understand the whole message. Another way to repair the breakdown is to ask for context. You were talking about your husband's new hobby, and they'll say, "No, no, 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 no. I was talking about they're redoing the lobby in my apartment." Then you know that you're going to hear things about construction or paint or design or, things like that. You're going to fill in the blanks based on what sort of a smaller set of what you might expect to hear about. You can verify that you heard correctly. You can repeat what you heard to make sure it's correct if it's important, if those details are important. You can paraphrase, indicating that you got the gist of what's being said. Um, whether you need to be really focused on the details of what's being said or the overall understanding of the general gist of it. You can verify that by repeating it. Some other strategies are you can ask for those adjustments we talked about previously. Ask the person to slow down. Ask them to speak more clearly. Ask them to face you. "Could you face me when you talk? It helps me follow along." Another, if you're in a really tricky environment, I picture this to be a situation where maybe you are on a group trip and you're in a train station and the leader of the trip is giving you some information, but you're in this huge room with lots of background noise, tons of people, and you're really needing to hear what they say. Ask for a written reinforcement of what they're saying. "Can you write this down for me?" There are times where we have to use all of the resources available to us. This may be less natural if you're just at a family meal, but it's also an option if you're really trying to understand. You can suggest moving to a quieter location if the listening environment is really tricky. If you're getting frustrated, if you're getting fatigued, listening fatigue is very real. People with hearing loss experience it exponentially faster than people with typical hearing. If you're feeling tired, if you're feeling frustrated, take a short break. Excuse yourself to go to the bathroom and just take a break and then return to the conversation. That can help it sometimes. And then, like I said before, educating your communication partners about what you need up front. Now, this is something that I'm sure many of you are going to say, "Yes, I know this." You will have to remind them. That's just the way it is. You'll have to probably say this more than once. It can feel frustrating. It can feel like they're not paying attention to your needs, but it does happen. And if you just know that that's likely that something you're going to have to do, it's probably better just to be ready for that. I want to pause to make sure there are no questions. I'm giving you a lot of information. Or anything any comments, anything anybody wants to contribute. If not, I'll just move on. Okay, so sort of the last part that I have to share with you is about technology. Now, there are different types of technology, and we all are probably interfacing with some types of technology these days. I've have two types of technology that I'm just going to talk about a bit. One is something that we all, most likely all of us carry around, and that is a smartphone of some type, whether it's an Apple product or a Android product or a Google product. There are smartphones everywhere, and there are lots of things that you can use your smartphone for that will enhance your understanding in group communication. One of them is speech to text functions. So there are apps that you can load onto your phone that will allow you to put your phone out, and while people are speaking, it will turn that spoken language into written language on your phone. There are also live captioning apps that you can get where it's going to be like the captioning at a movie or a theater, and it's live captioning, so it's happening in real time based on what somebody's saying. These are two similar functions, but smartphones, you can do this in the moment. The ones that I've listed on this slide are dedicated apps for this purpose, but I know that on an Apple phone, you can also just use your Notes app, which is an app that comes on your phone when you buy it, when you take it out of the box. And you can open that app, and just underneath the keyboard part where you would type in a note, there's a small microphone on the lower right-hand side. If you click on that and then just put your phone on the table, it will just start typing out what people are saying. So that can be really helpful to provide that visual reinforcement of what the auditory information in the environment to enhance your understanding. And then for people who are hearing aid or cochlear implant users, there are lots of things that are connected to your assistive listening devices that will help you. There are programs that can be, that can be programmed into your devices, either your cochlear implant or your hearing aid, that are for listening in the presence of background noise, that are for listening in less than optimal environments. So using those programs to your advantage. I know that the tendency so often is to stay on one setting with your listening devices and just, do your best on that. But technology has advanced so much that there are, changes to the programming that truly will help you. And then there are accessories to your hearing devices. There are FM systems, there are remote microphones. A mini mic, I wish that every person in the world had one, because they're so useful for really clearly listening. I just had an adult patient text me last night saying that she tried out her mini mic for the first time when she went for a walk with a friend. And she had been avoiding going for walks with friends because it was so frustrating to listen to them with all the environmental noise of walking around Manhattan. But when she decided finally to use this piece of technology that's available to her, she said it was totally different and so much easier and so much more enjoyable. So, so those are all available for you to enhance your understanding and your hearing in these situations as well. That's all I have in terms of presenting the information, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or if anybody would like to share anything, if anybody has anything they'd like to strategize around.
You want to stop sharing, Meg, at this point?
Absolutely. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh,
Okay.
let me see.
Susan, you are unmuted, so if you'd like to speak.
Oh, who are we speaking to? Are you speaking to me?
Susan, yes, you. Yep.
Okay, I'm on. I said, I wish everybody spoke as clearly and as, like you do, Meg. You're wonderful. I don't have to look at the captions when you speak.
Good.
Great. I did want to say about hearing partners. my husband is often my hearing partner, and sometimes when I don't hear, he shouts, and I hate it when he does that. So, but there's also the opposite where some people speak so softly that you can't, so that's part of like asking people who don't have enough volume in their voice to actually ask them if they could speak louder so that
Yes.
you can hear them. I find that's an issue. And I wanted to ask you, do you recommend a particular mini mic? You were saying that the mini mic was so good. Is there a particular brand that,
Well, goodness, that would be something that I could ask and get back to you about. I don't have as much of a purview of the options that are available. I
Yeah.
sort of am kind of my role is to have people come to me with that technology, and I help them figure out when and where to use it. But I just know that people sometimes will have those and never use them, or they'll acquire one and not use it when they really are an advantageous thing because they there are many that connect via Bluetooth right into your hearing aid. And so that in and of itself reduces some of the environmental challenges of background noise. But Susan, if you'd like, I can look into some recommendations and get back to you.
I'd like to, I know there's one that's quite expensive that people talk about. So, I was wondering if there are less expensive ones. And then I was about restaurants. I always look for the wall, to sit against the wall, or someplace where there's nobody behind me. So,
Yes,
that would interfere with my speaking.
that's a
Oh,
really
my
good point.
hearing, my speaking.
Yeah, I'm going to actually add that to this for the future. Sitting with against a wall is a fantastic idea. If you cannot have anybody, if you can avoid having people behind you, that's
Yeah, that
just
makes a
a
big
very
difference.
useful thing. This also reminds me of something else I wanted to tell everybody. There is a really interesting app and accompanying website called the Quiet List. Do
Oh,
people know about this?
no, what
So
is that?
this website called the Quiet List is a list of restaurants, and they have so many cities on the website. But the people who are the proprietors of this website also have an app, and people use this app and go into restaurants and measure the noise levels using this app on their phone, and then they report back to the people who run this website, and they then have created a database of restaurants that are quiet or more optimal for people with hearing loss or people with communication challenges related to listening, to go to restaurants that are quieter than typical. So it's a pretty interesting resource. I had a group look at it, and I know that for the New York City list, there are a few that have gone out of business as a result of the pandemic, but it's a really good place to start, and they have tons of cities on the list.
I always find I always opt for Greek restaurants because generally they're quieter than most other
Huh,
places. Yeah.
how interesting.
That's great.
So,
Meg, I just wanted to share with everyone, I put in the chat the link to the Quiet List, and I will include it in the email to Margie in case any of you in the center would like to have that as well. We have a couple of questions from the center itself, and then I think, Laura, I think you had wanted maybe to ask a question, so we'll come back to you. So go ahead in the center. Thank
I
you.
wear this hearing aid, I don't know if you've since the 2020 September. And now with the new technology, would you, I mean, she's trying to sell me another one. This was 6,500, something like that. And I don't know what the new one is. Do you know if that's the price that are going, or is too much money, or what?
It unfortunately, for such an important thing that is so central to your lives, hearing aids are very expensive. And you know, the recommendation is a replacement much more frequently than most of us can afford. You know, 2020, you said, is when you got those hearing aids?
Yes, September.
And do you visit your audiologist regularly to have
Yes,
checks
yes,
and
yeah,
programs?
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So you think, I said, let's wait for 2025. So how is the technology? And I do have an Apple phone and all what you said, but how is the technology more advantage? Because this is the type that I need. You know, she looked that this is the type that I need. Is that the technology way, way more advantage?
There have been, you know, technology with hearing devices, both hearing aids and cochlear implants, moves very quickly, and there have been a lot of advancements made. And what you may start hearing about is technology related to AI and connecting that to assistive listening technology like hearing aids. I know that there have been some big advancements with background noise reduction. And if that is something that is particularly challenging for you, as it is for most people, it may be worth a trial of a new model of hearing aids to see if it sounds better to you. It is true that there are always lots of advancements to the technology being made, and with the kind of introduction of AI, take it with a grain of salt, because some people are marketing AI-driven technology advancements for hearing aids in a way that isn't really accurate. But there are some exciting advancements being made, especially with background noise reduction. And it's background noise reduction, but it's also isolating the voices that you're attempting to listen to. AI has made some pretty cool advancements with being able to pull forward what you want to be listening to, and as a result, dropping back the other sounds in the environment so that you're really able to focus on what you want. But it's worth, hopefully you're able to do a trial and try it out.
Yes, she said. So that's about the price, 6,000, 6,500, something like that.
It's hard. It would be, I would be remiss to say anything about pricing because it's not something that I have any visibility to. But I've heard those figures and are in that ballpark before, so it's not just you that's getting that quote.
Okay. Because the place I could walk to, so it's very convenient rather to go to Manhattan and all that. All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
so
you.
welcome.
I just wanted to jump in. It's very hard to give pricing and things like that for individual hearing aids, but one of the things that really important to ask is what comes with that price. So make sure you understand that that comes with how many follow-up visits. Will you be charged for certain things in the future? Does it come with a mini mic
Yeah,
that
accessory.
Meg had just mentioned?
Yeah.
Does it come with any listening accessories for the TV or conversation like the mini mic? So don't be afraid to probe a little bit so you really understand what that is. And if it's not in your budget, you can let them know that too and see if there's any way to get something comparable but a little bit less priced, or maybe they would consider a discount or some kind of payment plan. So let's move on to some other questions. I think
Okay.
Laura had a question, is that right? Did you want to ask a question, Laura? Maybe.
You might be working on unmuting.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments?
I did want to mention that woman who just mentioned about the price of the hearing aid, she said was something that's really important, that I don't know if it's an audiologist or the convenience that it's close. I think that's really important when you choose an audiologist, that because you have to have adjustments and so forth, that having an audiologist that's nearby is really important. So I think that woman is on the right track.
Mm.
The convenience that she spoke of, I think that's really important to think about.
Thank you, yes, thank you.
And it's really important. The question I asked, are you going to the audiologist regularly? It's
Yeah.
really important to be open to the idea that there are adjustments that will need to be and would benefit you to have made to the programming of your hearing aids that will help you listen better and help you have a better listening experience with your hearing aids.
Yeah, she does all that. She checks it every 3 months, and if I need something, she'll do it. The only thing, last year I had to pay $150 because I don't know what was broken, but everything else is included. So yeah, and I could afford it, so it's worth it to get a new one. Thank you. And it wasn't easy to admit that I needed a hearing aid. My daughter and my son, and even my husband before dying, he said, you need it. And finally I did face it, and I'm happy with it.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Also,
I don't have a question. I don't know why I was asked on mute.
Oh,
Did
no.
do you have a question, Laura? I wasn't sure.
No, I don't.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they may want to share, or does anyone want to comment on the information that was shared today? Was it useful? Go ahead, Lynn. Yes.
I recently replaced my hearing aids also at a price that the other lady mentioned. I had gotten my previous one in a more distant location, and they were no longer under warranty. I now got new hearing aids at a local place in my area where I can walk to or drive to. There's a 3-year guarantee. I have had many adjustments and replacements if I wasn't happy. And the person I'm dealing with is very cooperative and always willing to talk if I have a complaint. So having convenience is an important thing, especially if you're not driving anymore and you can't get around to the other areas.
okay.
Were there any ideas discussed today that you might be interested in trying? And Sherry, did you want to say something?
Yes, I
Go
just
ahead.
wanted to mention that I recently had to do something with my hearing aids. And there is an ENT doctor on the east side. And she works with an audiologist who will travel to your home. She's called the traveling audiologist. She also shares office space with the physician. And so that she is there for appointments, but she will make appointments in your home. And I have not used her, but I know someone who did and who was very, very pleased with both the physician and the audiologist. She found, just as physical therapists are now traveling to your home, because it makes it easier for you and they save money, don't have to have the cost of office. So that is a consideration. And she came very, very well recommended. So if anyone is interested, they could just look up traveling audiologist. She's listed. And I could not use her because she only deals with 4 brands of hearing aids. And I had one. I didn't want to, I did not need a new one. I needed an adjustment. And the audiologist I had been using retired. So I was looking for a new one. But she could not help me because she did not have the software for the brand that I was using. But it seemed like a great opportunity to, for people. She's always, you could just reach her on the phone and make an appointment. So that's one possibility. There is also, I've been wearing hearing aids for a long time. And I do research. When I do something, I look into it very thoroughly. There is also a spot if someone is concerned about the price. There is a spot on the internet to buy something through this company, and they will give you a list of audiologists who work with them. So you go to your audiologist, and I did this one time and it worked out very well. It was a great savings. And again, that's on the internet. Look it up where you buy it, and you buy it, you go to your audiologist, and you have to use someone who is connected with this. But it was, I saved about $2,000.
Terrific.
And I found, and the audiologist they recommended, I was very, very pleased with. I stayed with him until he just retired. So it's a possibility. That's the only information I have at the moment. But the technology is incredible. I do have the noise reduction. It does make a difference. My problem is clarity, and that is a major problem. But
Well-
the noise reduction does help.
Sherry, you gave me the idea, or you remind me that with the traveling audiologist, I would be remiss not to let all of you know that CHC does provide virtual services,
Oh,
but from me, not audiological services, but oral rehabilitation, auditory training. So basically, I work with adults and meet with them via Zoom to practice and optimize listening in everyday situations. And I, work with a wide variety of adults who are cochlear implant and hearing aid users. And that is a service that CHC offers if you are interested in improving your listening skills or strategizing around your listening and communication skills. And that's a virtual service, so you also wouldn't have to travel. That's something that can happen in the comfort of your home.
Meg, is it okay to share your contact information
Oh, of
in the
course.
chat? And then I'll share it again in the email as well. Okay. Any other thoughts or?
I wanted to say that I always learn something new, and even though a lot of it is review, there's always, I never heard of a traveling audiologist.
I
That's
know.
brand new to me. That's great. And
Mhm.
some of the captioning apps are new to me also. I'm going to try to see how they are. I use Otter AI mostly, but I'm going to try those out too. So and it's always good to review, what you already know, and also the notes. I always forget about the notes app, that that you can record on that. Somehow it always slips my mind, but that's excellent.
It's what I really recommend, that I'm always I'm banging this drum all the time. Consider using it for doctor's appointments, if nothing else, because that way you have a written record of all of the things that your doctor or whatever, medical appointment, you have a written record of what's said to you. And I think that that's a really useful tool for everybody, because we get, we're preoccupied or nervous or, freezing cold because we're in the little robe they give us. Having that live transcription of medical appointments is a really useful way of confirming that you got all of the information that you needed.
And, I also wanted to know about the oral rehab. Is it like a course that you take over weeks, or is it one-to-one, or is it a group? How does that work?
This is one-to-one individual therapy, speech language therapy essentially, but it's specific to, we sort of take a baseline of how your hearing aids or your listening skills are serving you in everyday practical contexts. So in contrast to how you hear in a sound booth when you go to the audiologist, this is about how you hear when you are living your everyday life. So we kind of get some baseline information and then together set the goals that you might have for this type of work. And then we meet individually once a week for about 6 to 8 weeks, practice and work towards those goals that you have, and then, sort of reconvene to discuss whether you feel like you've gotten, the practice or information that you've needed, and that you are ready to sort of go off on your own again, or if you want to continue the work. There are so many different things that are focused on in these sessions. There are some people who, need a little bit of tweaking with being able to hear certain sounds, speech sounds accurately. There are people who need to work on those accompanying skills that go along with listening, like memory and attention and things like that. There's strategizing and troubleshooting communication breakdowns or device use, things like that. There's so many different things that can be done with that time. And I always say that one of the things that I think a lot of my adult patients find useful is dedicating that time to thinking about their hearing once a week for 45, 50 minutes, that it kind of focuses them to think about their hearing, and that sort of expands to their whole everyday life, that they become more focused on thinking about their hearing and trying to optimize it as much as possible. This was not meant to be any kind of, living brochure for our services, but I want to mention them because.
Yeah, it's important. It's very unique what we offer. Center for Hearing Communication has been around for a very long time. We've done a lot of partnering with the Riverdale Center. One of the challenges is that we are not in your immediate neighborhood, but we are accessible by the major subways, buses, and if you're able to drive or have someone bring you downtown. But the nice part is a lot of our services, specifically the ones offered by Meg, are virtual. And what's really unique is since the pandemic, we do require people to come in for a hearing test. But after that, depending on the type of hearing aids you have, many of the follow-up services can be done virtually. And they may even be able to test your hearing using very specific hearing aids from your own home. So those are some things that you could explore. So if distance is a concern, these are some things that can make it a little